Well, hello and welcome to the stream. Go ahead and see what we can get into. I'm going to do a little bit of Art Bell that came out on February 5th of 1998.
Peter Davenport back again. And, the more I think about this, Peter, the less sense it makes. Our U.S. military, our Air Force simply wouldn't do this. They wouldn't, Art. And that is one of many things that makes that photograph, to my way of thinking, very, very intriguing. I hope our listeners can get a chance to look at it because it says a lot. Now, to this point in the program, I have given sort of a general outline of the situation portrayed by that photograph. There's one little detail I haven't mentioned yet, and this is the really mysterious part about all of this. Those whales were not only found on a beach near Key West, this is now about March of 1991. Not only were they found on a beach, but they were grossly disfigured. Disfigured in the sense that their flukes or their caudal peduncle, what one would be inclined to call their tails, thank you, were grossly turned. They were bent 90 degrees to the long axis of their body off to the side. Intense. Now, under most circumstances like this, when animals are beached, they're usually euthanized if they can't be returned to the water, or if they're returned and they insist on beaching themselves again. A veterinarian or someone qualified will destroy the animals, so they're not allowed to suffer. How do you straighten out a whale, Ted? That is the question. I presume, Art, that there are people out there who may know the answer to that question. That's part of why I'm so delighted to put this issue before so many listeners tonight, to see if there's somebody who can help me solve this mystery, because it is a mystery. As far as I can tell, I have pursued this one for 6 years, and I have not succeeded to date. Well, you have to have the photographs. I mean, you couldn't come on the air and say this and have people believe you without the photographs. I mean, that was just really important. So go take a look, folks. A whale coming right out of a Black Hawk, no kidding. What would induce the military to spend the type of money that would be necessary to rescue, to house, to feed, to medicate, and rehabilitate 16 whales, only then to turn around and spend, by my calculation, Art, those 8 flights by 3 helicopters 150 miles offshore or so, I estimate cost the American taxpayer somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000. That is a sizable taxi fare. Why, for example, would the people who possessed those animals or who had medicated them for those 13 months not simply open the gate to their pen and let them swim out under their own steam? Somebody, I reason, was terribly interested in those whales, to house them for well over a year. And then, moreover, to carry them out in very fancy machines, risking the crews and the machines themselves. Black Hawk helicopters, I understand, go for somewhere between $10 million and $20 million, depending on the model. Now, why would anybody in his right mind fly one of those craft 150 miles from shore, if the captions to the photographs are correct, 150 miles from shore, only to drop the cetacean in the water and then fly back to shore and get it on another one and do it over again? There's got to be some reason somebody was terribly interested in those animals. Well, you can imagine, I suppose, that if they were going to re-beach themselves, or if there was a concern about their re-beaching, taking them 150 miles out might lessen that possibility, because they'd have to go an awful long way to re-beach themselves. That's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. Now, there's a very good observation that I have to admit had not occurred to me. But on the other side of the coin, I'm told by the people in that area that those helicopters allegedly were part of a search and rescue operation. Again, it was a training mission, I was told. Now, well, all right, I can tell you this. Look, I went and I visited the International Guard in Alaska.
And I can tell you this, they do not fire up a black hole and go out on a rescue, even a rescue mission, Peter, without a very, very serious reason because of the cost. It is tremendously costly to fly them, as you have pointed out. So I just, I think the overall question of why our military would be involved at all under any circumstances with whales for a 15-month period of time, I think that's just beyond my understanding.
Yes. The fact that they were not destroyed, the fact that they had end tails, and I'll come back to that point in just a moment, the fact that somebody on very short notice had some mad money totaling at least $1 million, I calculate, probably more, to throw at a group of whales. Now, if it had been some kind of commercial operation, it's almost understandable. They had a group of whales, they would train them for performances and so on and so forth. But in this case, if we can believe the caption, if we can believe the photo, they were treated for over a year only to be released to the wild again. Now, of course, you can't rule out that there might have been somebody with a magnanimous streak to his soul or her soul who has a love for cetaceans, as I think most human beings do, certainly a respect, and decided to treat these animals well. That is certainly possible. In fact, it could be said of the government. Maybe they have some kind of fund for resurrecting injured animals like this. However, let's go back to the bent tail for just a moment, Art. I have talked to a number of marine mammal specialists out here at the NOAA facility, trying to discover why a whale like that would have its flukes, its tail, into the side. Now, as most people know, the flukes, the tail on a porpoise, when it swims, goes up and down, not side by side. The major muscle groups move the flukes up and down. The muscle groups that move the fluke to the side are much less well developed. It is a mystery to all of them why these animals, so far as I am aware at this time, I am not a cetacean specialist, but I have not succeeded in finding one to date who can explain to me the rationale behind why the flukes would be bent to the side. Now, this is where the rub enters. The thing that caught my eye about this incident was the similarity in the deformation of the tails to the deformation that, for example, is seen in crop circles, the deformation of the grains, or rather the stalks of grain that are now frequently seen in bona fide crop circles.
That can be duplicated or very nearly duplicated only by microwave radiation.
Yes. And the work that many crop circle specialists have done points out very clearly that this is the case. Dr. Levengood, Colin Andrews, many are working on that problem, and the results of their work show the same thing, that in the instance of a bona fide crop circle, the stalks can be, oftentimes are, bent at up to 90 degrees. I've seen that myself in a crop circle we have out here in the state of Washington. I think it was formed on Memorial Day of 1993. I walked in that field and I saw that very phenomenon. The other thing that comes to mind from UFO lore is a few of the cases from the southwestern United States in which UFOs were seen to fly very low over automobiles, and they bent the antennas at a 90-degree angle. There are several cases that I'm aware of. I'm sure there must be more that I'm not aware of. That caught my eye.
That's UFO vandalism.
The intriguing thing about this is to consider whether if an alien organism were to come to the planet Earth, is there anything that says that the human organism here on this planet would be the only biological form that they would be interested in?
Only egotistical humans would conclude that.
That is my response too. There is every argument that I can imagine that would say they certainly would be every bit as interested in all other intelligent organisms, and the cetaceans are certainly that. For many years, when I studied biology, humans were congratulating themselves on just how intelligent we were. We're in the top of the intelligence tree, if you will. The only interesting thing about that is it's not true. For one thing, we argue that we have the largest brains in the biological world. That's not true.
We really don't, do we?
I believe I'm correct in saying that the bottlenose dolphin has a larger brain than man does.
The bottlenose dolphin has a larger brain than man. That's interesting.
The other criterion we used was the brain mass to body mass ratio. We congratulated ourselves on how much of our weight was dedicated to brain. Again, I believe I'm correct in saying that, again, the bottlenose dolphin has a higher brain mass to body mass ratio than man does. Now, the real clincher was the third criterion that we have used to argue our intelligence for years and years, and that is the percentage of our brains that is dedicated to neocortex.
Yes.
The neocortex is that outer shell of the brain where the higher thought processes occur, where things like personality are thought to dwell, and so on. Now, the bottlenose dolphin, and perhaps other cetaceans, but I believe the bottlenose has up to 98% of its brain dedicated to neocortex. So clearly, I cite these things to underscore the fact that those organisms are very intelligent by any measure.
I'm beginning to feel rather poorly as I listen about that, particularly this last slam, 98% here.
Some 98% is my understanding. I may stand corrected down the road by people who have accumulated a great deal more knowledge about these organisms than I have. I am a marine biologist in a sense, albeit not a specialist when it comes to cetaceans. But these are things that I've read from seemingly credible sources. I cite them to point out the fact that any organism coming to this planet almost certainly would be as interested in cetaceans as they would be in human beings.
Or maybe even more so. Or more so. Maybe they would be the reason, in fact, that somebody or something would come to visit your period. Look at the classic Star Trek movie. I mean, it's not beyond reason. Anything we can think of and imagine can occur, and it could well be that they are some sort of very special marker species on this planet, and that they have intelligence that we don't begin to understand or communicate with. But that others would, and they would be the reason they come here, not us.
Another thing I would cite is the fact that they do not have weapons. It's true, they don't have tools, they don't have an opposing thumb and forefinger, for example, many of the things we describe about human beings, but they do not have weapons, they don't have war.
Oh, we don't have shields.
That's right. But I would invite our listeners to go look at that photograph. Again, I go back to a point I cited at the beginning of the program. I throw this out, one, because you were discussing the issue of beaching every night. Every night, Rachel. It is a fascinating phenomenon. I truly believe that the researchers in that field are no closer to understanding what these organisms are doing or why than they were 50 years ago. And the Greeks wrote about this phenomenon some 3,000 years ago. It's by no means a new phenomenon.
No way. It certainly isn't, but it may be an awful lot more frequent now.
Could be. That may be explained by a higher frequency of cetaceans. I don't know what the trend in population density is of those organisms in various parts of the oceans. But there are three theoretical reasons for beaching. Some people have cited the biological reasons. For a long time, they argued that it was due to parasites in their ears, due to predators, due to the fact that their echolocation system was paralyzed or thwarted by some condition or another, something along those lines. Nobody has ever been able to prove any one of those theories. Now, for a long time, some people argued that it was due to submarines. Now, when a submarine touches off its active sonar, that is, pings trying to find a target, right? The brain puts out an immense whopping load of energy for a short period of time. Now, some have argued that that might serve to frighten cetaceans. I don't think that's the case. Moreover, submarines very, very rarely use their active sonar. After all, they're trying to go undetected. Sure, you can't do that by pinging every so often. Certainly, they don't do it in shallow water as well, I'm told by submariners. And the third issue, and this is the one that I throw out tentatively, this is only but a theory, Art, is could there be some kind of interaction taking place in the marine or aquatic environment, but marine environment between cetaceans and UFOs or aliens, whatever you want to call them? There are some fascinating scholarly works done on the presence of UFOs in the marine environment.
And then wouldn't that account also for the military's intense interest in this, and they're spending all this money to do it?
That is certainly the next step in the chain of logic, in my opinion. But I would invite people to look at those photographs on your website. I think after they've analyzed them carefully for perhaps 5 or 10 minutes, and they've read the captions, and they've sat and ruminated on what the significance of that photograph is, and all of the facts that are reported about it, I will be very curious to know whether I am crazy or whether there's something very special about this photograph that does not meet the eye and which could be potentially very deep, very profound.
All right, we're running out of time. If you would like a response from anybody out there, how would they get the response to you? And don't forget, folks, $5 or $10 donations to the above address or the address you're about to hear would be very much appreciated for work Peter's doing as a nonprofit organization.
And let me say, we are terribly grateful to those people who've been sending donations. We've been overwhelmed, and we're preparing a little package to send out to those people to say thanks very much. We have just been swamped with
excellent. All right, address.
The address, they can send it via email, director@ufocenter.com. Please make them very short, 1 or 2 sentences. We're getting hundreds of emails a day. Director@ufocenter.com. They can find our website, www.ufocenter.com. And our mailing address is the National UFO Reporting Center, P.O. Box 45623, University Station, Seattle, Washington, 98145.
All right. Well, then I invite everybody to trek up to my website right now, www.artbell.com, and do as Peter suggests. Take a look at a Black Hawk dumping a whale and ruminate on that photograph and on the caption for a while. Peter, my friend, thank you so much.
Thank you, Art. It's been delightful.
Take care. Good night. All right. We're going to be back with the unknown in a moment. Well, whiplash from last night is what it's going to be. I'm Ardell, and this is Coast to Coast AM. It was me, Ardell, somewhere in time. Tonight, we will replay on Coast to Coast AM on February 5th, 1998. Once again, here I am. Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. We're going to place the feature go here in a few moments, and I'm going to give you last night's program, Whiplash. I've got a few announcements I want to repeat at this hour. And they are, one, I rarely make movie recommendations. I am not Siskel nor am I Ebert, but I want you to see what we call the trigger effect. It's called the trigger effect. If not, look it up. It's on Stars 2 later today, or this morning actually. Not too many people get Stars 2, I guess. But it'll be on HBO on the 20th. Or no doubt you can go rent it or somehow log onto it. It's called the trigger effect. And if you want an incredible study of what would happen to the human race, the human being, if something went wrong, any little thing like suddenly losing power, lights, television, radio, computers, power, electricity. Want to know what would happen? You can watch the trigger effect. It is a phenomenal movie. I'm getting a lot of agreement on that from those who've seen it. So there's my movie recommendation. My wife taped it yesterday, and we watched it after the program yesterday morning. And man, what a movie. Now, our climate will appear to be changing. The New York Times, 12798, a brand new story. If climate changes, it may change quickly. Past warnings or coolings occurred, coolings occurred in decades or much less. From the New York Times, in the debate over global warming, there has been a widespread assumption that if humans are changing the Earth's climate, the effects will be felt gradually and smoothly, making it much easier to adapt to the change. But a growing accumulation of geological evidence is making it ever clearer that in the past, the climate has undergone drastic changes in temperature and rainfall patterns in the space of the human lifetime, in fact, a decade or even less. Now, many experts believe that late in the next century, concentrations of gas will double their pre-industrial levels. Should that happen, mainstream scientists say the average surface temperature of the globe will rise by 2 to 6 degrees Fahrenheit compared with a rise of 5 to 9 degrees since the depths of the last ice age. To give you some idea of the scale of the rise. Scientists don't know for sure, of course, so the question gives a pause. Dr. Wallace S. Drucker of Columbia University's Lamont Dowery Earth Observatory said, the climate system is an angry beast, and we are poking it with sticks. He said, we don't know whether it's going to pay attention to the pulse, but if it does, it might rise up and do something we are not going to like. Now, I say this as the forecast for the Oregon coast earlier today, and I presume that still holds, is for somewhere between 70 and 90 mile an hour wind. I talked to Bob Crane in Northern California a little while ago, and he said the winds were howling up there. Definitely a concern when you have rising directly above you 100-foot redwood trees, which can come down in these kinds of winds. The East Coast is getting clobbered. The West Coast, if you've looked at the weather forecast and maps through the weekend, it is absolutely horrendous. Horrendous. I have told you now for the last 2 years that I believe the climate is changing, and I think the evidence is now here. The last hour we spent talking with Peter Davenport. 60 more sperm whales have beached themselves in Tasmania. These are not little whales. These are sperm whales. These are up to 30-ton giants that just decided they'd do away with themselves and beach themselves in Tasmania. We have a couple of photographs on the website right now that are total blowaways. Peter Davenport brought them to us. And they show U.S. military Black Hawk helicopters dumping whales at 150 miles out to 50 sea. These are whales the military kept for up to 13 months. They beached themselves, the military collected them up, did something with them for 13 months, straightened out their tails. They were bent. The tails were bent like crop circle wheat. Military kept them for 13 months and then utilized Black Hawk helicopters to take them out two at a time, like Noah, and dump them into the ocean 150 miles out at sea. We've got photographs. You go take a look at the helicopters yourself. You'll see a whale actually getting mid-air coming out of a Black Hawk helicopter, stands like you ever saw. The way you see that is go to my website at www.arthill.com. Scroll down to where you see the name Peter Davenport as a guest and click on that. You'll see the photographs. And as he said, you better go up there, sit and ruminate about what you see a little bit and wonder why our military would do such a thing. Last night, we had a very, very serious program on the subject of abduction. We had Dr. Roger Lear and Daryl Sims, and they brought with them pictorial evidence of implantation of human beings with what has to be alien technology. The electron scanning microscope photographs are up there for you all to see. You just go take a look at them, be my guess. It was a staggeringly important program with regard to the abduction syndrome. And this morning, we're going to present yet another program that has to do with the abduction syndrome, but not quite the same material. Here from Southern California is an abduction victim. I'm not sure it's fair to call her a victim. She is Pamela, and we'll call her own Pamela, abduction victim. I heard a gurgle. Was that you, Pamela?
Yes, it was.
She gurgled.
I should have told you to call me an experiencer instead.
An experiencer?
Yes.
You wouldn't describe yourself, Pamela, as a victim?
Absolutely not.
No.
No.
When did your experience begin? What sort of early age were you first?
Well, my first conscious contact is about 5 years ago. However, it's interesting that you would have Roger Lear and Daryl Sims on last night because I was practically jumping out of bed. I listened all night, so I'm a little tired. It's because of you. Because I worked all day and listened to you all night.
Then you listened to that show intently last night.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I met Daryl Sims at a workshop, and it was just recently after I had had my first conscious contact. And I went to his workshop, and it was the first time that I had ever heard of scoop marks. And I realized that I had 2 marks on the front of my leg since I was a child. And I literally couldn't believe that, because at the time when I had found them, when I was young, there was no scar. It was just all of a sudden there were 2 holes in the front of my leg. They're about the size of a watch battery. And they're about 1.5 inches apart from one another. And I remember after the workshop going up to Daryl and saying, Daryl, does this look like scoop marks to you? And he looked at me and he said, yeah. He said, welcome.
Did he really?
Yeah. And I remember.
Now, was there any abduction experience that you recall to go along with this? Or was it, no, so the scoop marks came out of nowhere?
Well, out of nowhere when I was young. And of course, when you're young, you go, that. You know, I don't remember.
Not that young. I mean, this is 5 years ago, right?
No. 5 years ago was when I had my first conscious
Oh,
contact.
okay. Now that makes sense. All right. So the scoop marks were at about what age?
I was around 8 or 9.
8 or 9.
Mm-hmm. And I remember them showing up at different times. And
So this was before puberty then.
oh yeah. And I'm trying to make some connections. I lost a job actually from going public about 6 months ago, and from going public with my experiences.
What kind of going public?
Well, I don't mind saying that I've done your radio show before. And
Yeah, but that was
Strange Universe a year ago. The Strange Universe is going to be playing the segment, and they were hardly generous. They took sound like out of context, as they're known to do. But But that's not a problem because I really took the 6 months off and I actually finished the proposal to a book that I'm writing. And
Well, you got canned for what you said.
oh yeah, and I'm not the only one.
That is so unfair.
Yeah, it's almost a new little form of prejudice that we have on our hands.
It is a new form of prejudice.
Yeah, and it's just the unknown. People are.
I can hear you gurgle. Are you in a bubble bath?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's my computer. I have my aquarium on.
Fish going across your ears.
Maybe I can replicate that. Sorry about that.
That's fine, right? I pictured you sitting there in a bubble bath.
You know, I wish with a glass of champagne.
Yeah, that's right. Well, all right. So you actually, you know what? You can sue somebody over that. I mean, just because you tell a story about an abduction. Albeit, I know yours is a very strange story.
Yes, it is.
But nevertheless.
I know. I thought of getting Peter Gersten involved, and I thought, you know, do I want to walk down that road? I take so much shit and ridicule about this as it is. I mean, you know, you become aware of something that's so incredibly profound, and you want to share it with the world because you feel that it's important, and you literally have to keep your mouth shut with both hands in almost everything you do in your life. And it's very challenging because I really believe it's something that I think disclosure is imminent and that we can't really get this information out fast enough to prepare ourselves.
Well, I understand why you are discriminated against. However, it is against the law.
It is indeed.
And no matter how wild your story, you cannot be canned for having related an experience.
Yeah, well, like I said, I'm not the only one. I have a very good girlfriend who is an incredible script supervisor and told the story to the wrong person, and the next day it was like flying like wildfire, and she was canned.
How did Strange Universe get on you?
I believe they had contacted John Rhodes about using some of his drawings, and one of the drawings was the one that I described of my reptilian entity, Shukasara, so they had to call me to get permission. And then the producer started asking me questions. In fact, I have a whole transcript of my Strange Universe interview. I made a point to get it before I wrote my book, because what they edited, it will clearly show that it was kind of like a 60 minutes deception tape where they really make it look like you're an idiot and sensationalize everything you're saying without using the substance of what you're saying.
Well, now, let us at least be fair. You've got to admit that your story, you know, even told straight, is absolutely sensational.
It is, but you know, the thing is, Art, and since I had this experience and went public with it, I can't tell you how many letters and emails I received from people having the same experience. Well, you know, the night that I was on,
I do.
I mean, that's one of the reasons.
Call after call of people. I mean,
You wouldn't believe the mail that I got, and plus the fact that when I started researching, I realized there are a lot of other abductees who quietly mentioned this in a part of their book, or you have to understand that sex is so repressed in our society. So you put sex in any context, it's taboo, minus the fact that it's with an interdimensional being, reptilian.
But here's the thing, sex is an integral part of the whole abduction phenomenon. Now, people, because it's sex, they don't talk about it a lot, of course. But let's face it, facts, folks, the facts are that an awful lot of the abduction syndrome describes intense interest in human reproduction.
Absolutely.
It actually, many times, women who tell the whole story tell of children that have been the product of a relationship with one of them.
Absolutely. Well, I told you that my first conscious contact was waking up aboard an spacecraft and seeing my 4 hybrid daughters calling me mommy. And I nearly lost it. I had never experienced anything like that. And it changed my whole life.
Can you describe your daughters? I mean, what? Now your relationship was with a reptilian creature.
Right. The daughters that I saw were half gray and half human. Now, I had great experiences for about 2 years before I had a reptilian experience.
But most people, Pamela, describe the Greys as asexual. That they are actually perhaps crosses between biological things and machines, androids.
Cloned entities. Yeah. Well, and I believe that that is the case. The thing is, I don't know that there's any intercourse that takes place. The men abductees that I know have described machines being placed on their genitalia and having the semen pop out. Women describe having, well, I know myself, having things inserted in you,
Yes.
maybe like an insemination type procedure of some kind.
Yes.
And so it's not really physically sexual like the reptilian interaction is. I don't believe the reptilian interaction is necessarily to create another species. However, I really don't know. I always have more.
Well, actually, there's a question. Do you suppose that the reptilian-human interaction and your reptilian consort, that it's sexual in the same way that it's sexual between a man and a woman?
You know, I have
Sex, in other words, sex for the sake of sex.
I think it's very possible. I mean, I've seen the reptilians described as sort of a warrior class, sort of as, like sort of what our soldiers would do if they walked into a foreign land. They
Macho.
in the liquor, you know.
Women in the liquor, yeah, that's good.
And I don't really know. I know that so much has happened to me since I talked to you the last time. I had an incredible regression with a wonderful woman. I don't know if you're familiar with Barbara Lamb. She's an hypnotic regressionist. And she was doing a video on the abduction phenomenon, and I'll call it that because most people don't resonate with contact experiences or whatever. But she asked me if she could regress me on video, and I told her that I have this unusual feeling of communion with the reptilian species, and if we could address that issue, I would be more than happy to spend my evening being regressed.
Now, a lot of people, the first time they were on, probably doubted or scoffed at your story. I mean, a sexual relationship with a lizard, for heaven's sakes.
I had a lot of letters that ridiculed me, but I will suggest those that ridicule and use profane language to use spell check, because inevitably they were the ones that I could barely read. The people that notified you that had real experiences were the most eloquent and articulate and sensitive and compassionate people. And so many people thanked me that I literally had tears in my eyes reading some of the letters. And I've helped a lot of people process these experiences because I've come into a place of being able to control them within the interaction.
You, of course, have to understand that it's very difficult for the average person, not another experiencer, or not somebody who's born again and wants you unborn or something. But I mean, the average person out there to grasp the fact that there is an ongoing. I heard your aquarium. There is an ongoing relationship between human earth women and reptilian beings.
Oh yeah, well, and I understand that it's probably the ultimate insult for men, and I remember men being very upset by the things I said, and believe me, I love men.
Well, the only part of what you said that tended to upset men was when you said that actually reptilian sex was better than human male sex.
Well, I'm not sure I put it quite that way.
Well,
it like I said, it was very different. It was.
No, you did put it that way. Now, hold on, we're at the bottom of the act. You're listening to our film, Somewhere in Time on Premier Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from February 5th, 1998. You're listening to our show, following time on Free Wire Criminal Efforts. Tonight, an encore consultation of Coast to Coast AM from February 5th, 1998. And it's great to be here. My guest is Pamela. Pamela had a sexual relationship with a lizard guy. And that's really unfair because actually, they are known as reptilians. Scales and all. We'll get back to that one in a moment. All right, back now to Pamela. And I think we left off at the point, Pamela, where really, I mean, if you're really being honest, Pamela, you've got to admit that you did make a rather definitive statement.
All right, you can call me on that if you want.
That reptilian sex was better than human sex.
Well, I can only tell you that it was like something I had never, ever experienced. And it was very tantric. It was
Very what?
tantric. It was a skilled performance, let's say. And not only that, there was an emotional connection that I felt that was so profound.
So this was not just your basic.
No. It was aggressive, but so am I.
Right. Well, by the way, the last time you were on, we did not have a drawing of your reptilian friend.
Right.
Now, tonight we do. We have long memories and files.
Well, I still get emails from that, and unfortunately, people don't have access to my first interview, so they just call me completely ridiculous.
Well, I know they need to hear the story, and they're going to, but what I'm saying to everybody is on my website now, it's a picture of your reptilian friend.
Right. Now, and I can tell you that it's not exact because I only described it for a quick 15 minutes to Masara, but it's very close. There are some differences, and I hope to have a better drawing in my book. So just that doesn't look like that's not a picture, you know. No, it's not a picture. I didn't have my camera, okay? You know, cameras work on an interdimensional level. Sorry.
In other words, you wouldn't have taken a picture of him anyway.
No.
What was his name?
Well, I didn't really give the entity a name. I didn't hear a name. In fact, one of the things I'd really like to talk about was this regression because I found it a very profound revelation for me. I did this regression with Barbara Lamb, and it was a 3-hour regression. It was pretty phenomenal because you never know when you're going in what's going to come out yourself because your defenses are down, you're tapping into an unconscious realm that you don't have access to when you're conscious. And I had the experience of being a reptilian hundreds of thousands of years ago.
Well, that may account for your case now.
Well, it's very possible that I was meeting myself or an aspect of me or someone that I knew from that time. I firmly believe in past lives. And I think it's very possible that we have been all of these species at one time or another, or at least a good number of them. And since metaphysics has taught me that there is no past, present, or future, we have access to these particular realities that we might have been a part of.
Can I ask a couple of questions about the photograph?
Sure.
Okay. It kind of looks like this reptilian guy.
Yeah.
Is wearing a t-shirt.
Yeah, It's more of a breastplate, I would think. And like I say,
and then you can almost like see what looks like lungs or something.
well, it's very human. And like I say, to the touch, it was very soft. It wasn't scaly. It was.
But in the photograph, it shows definite green scales.
Yeah. Well, like I say, the entity that I saw, who knows how much is screen? Who knows what these entities really look like? Maybe all the grays are really reptilians.
But I would presume that when you describe for the person who did this, very good drawing. It's very good drawing. You know, it almost looks like a cobblestone road. I mean, the skin looks like a cobblestone road, you know, with indentations in between the scales. Now,
Right. It reminded me of the entity reminded me of a tattooed being, totally tattooed with a snake type, you know.
When you touched that skin, did you feel the individual scales?
No,
Or did you see the same whole thing felt smooth?
Well, have you ever held a snake?
Yeah, when I was real young.
All right, well, snake spots are very soft,
Garden snake.
but they're very firm.
Yeah.
And that's the closest thing I can tell you that it felt like.
Okay.
And again, you know, men are visually oriented, so for men, this sort of thing would be completely out of the question.
Big turn off.
It would be a turn off.
A female version of this creature would be nothing you'd want to tangle with in any way at all, much less special, that's for sure.
But for women, if you appeal to us on an emotional level, on a spiritual level, generally it doesn't really matter, you know, what the package is. We seem to move from a different place.
Yeah, there's packages and packages, and this is not even remotely human.
Well, you would be very surprised how many letters I got from women who would long for something like this.
Like this. And these are women who saw the photograph, Emma?
I don't know. They heard the interview, and I think that they resonated with the fact that there was a very deep emotional.
Well, I was going to ask about that next. So, how deep was the emotional connection between you and... He didn't have any name?
No. You didn't need a name. It's really a strange thing. It's like you don't relate on the same level that you do with a human being. It's almost as if you are really one with that being. I mean, the communication, the telepathic communication was so loving.
Now, that's almost a beast. The creature has a mouth.
Yeah.
Sort of.
It's kind of
like a deep mouth.
Well, it's actually more alligator-ish.
Yeah.
You know what? I was in a pet shop, believe it or not, and I saw the bearded dragon, and all of them were at the side of the cage, opening their mouth to me, and I jumped back because it was almost like a memory of some kind.
That would have been a sensuous sort of.
And well, I was just shocked because it was a reminder of the trigger effect, let's say.
Trigger effect, thank you.
It really triggered something in me. And like I say, it's called a bearded dragon, and it's a reptile, a small little reptile. And I you know, like I say, I had to do another drawing because the mouth was very, very different than that. But it was very human-like. I mean, you know, almost imagine a human being more so than a reptile. It's really...
Well, you know, you said there was telepathic communication, and you said there was a deep emotional involvement. Now, was there...
The being that you knew me?
Was there, like, a courtship to this thing, or was it...
I don't think...
Was it more like being dragged off by your hair into a cave?
Well, I don't even think a courtship type thing or a thought in that direction is even important because, like I say, I felt a connection as though we were connected, maybe for eons, you know?
Well, I'll tell you, if human guys only had that ability to impart that feeling to human women, there wouldn't be near the trouble on this planet we have now.
Well, you know, I think people that we do meet, we have resonated with and had experiences with. We're just not aware of them.
Instead of some stupid line like, what sign are you or something, it's an immediate mental communication. And boom, there you are.
Yeah. Well, I think it really comes down to respect because, as many of your guests have said, there really are no secrets anymore. And we communicate with each other on a telepathic level anyway. And it's just a matter of how tuned in you are to yourself and to other beings. I mean, we're all so divine and so multidimensional that if we could only see that about one another and ourselves.
So then it really wouldn't be wrong to say that it was telepathic love at first sight.
Yeah, we could say that. Like I say, I believe that I was meeting an aspect of myself. I think I was being reminded because in my regression, one of the things that she asked me was why I had such a connection with this particular race. And I saw myself on a hill with my fellow warriors. I was a male reptilian in this life. And we were basically, we knew that the end was near. We didn't know exactly what it was. We didn't have weapons. Our minds were our weapons. We were preparing ourselves mentally for our doom. And I remember looking at the other beings, and there was such a sense of love and knowing that we were going to perish. And a red cloud, I don't know if it was radiation or what, came over. And that was when I came out of the regression. But she asked me why I would be in touch with the reptilians in this lifetime. And the answer, wait a minute, you're going to love this. The answer was that the same thing is going to happen here on this planet. There is an end in sight. Maybe it's a precognitive prophetic vision that I have, but that many of those warriors from that time that went through that are reincarnated now to experience it once again.
You can almost look at him, based on the story you just told, and imagine them as reptilian barbarians.
Well, you could, except that in that life, they were very evolved. They were spiritual warriors.
Well, spiritual barbarians.
They were mental giants.
But they were also warriors, right? In other words, the Mars influence, for example, they take what they want, right?
Well, this again is something we have to remember. We can't blanket statement any extraterrestrial species because we can't blanket human beings. There are good ones, there are bad ones, and then when you take it out into the universe, into the cosmic realm, we're talking about from the past, from the future, evolved, unevolved, technologically, spiritually, and vice versa.
But so you're talking about a warrior species, basically.
Well, that's what people say, but you have to understand that not everyone has that particular perception of it. I mean, there are as many varied stories as you can possibly imagine.
All right, how aggressive was your reptilian?
Well, it was very aggressive, and I believe that I was in a lot of fear because it was so shocking to me visually. But once there was a telepathic communication, I started to calm down. And I said to myself, I've been through a year and a half of gray abductions that were so shattering to me physically that this, obviously, I'm not going to die. That's the conclusion I came to from going through so many abduction experiences.
I'm not going to die. I wouldn't conclude I wouldn't die if I had tangled with them.
Well, the thing is, like I say, I didn't get that sort of telepathic communication from the graves. It was cold, it was clinical, and
that was really more frightening than this, because at least here you were getting some sort of mental, emotional connection.
Exactly, and I was having severe physical symptoms of some of the procedural stuff that was going on with the grave. So this was at least pleasurable, and I decided in the middle of the sex act to get out of fear. I mean, that's what I've been teaching myself for a year and a half anyway with these experiences. I have to stay out of fear. I've got to conquer that, otherwise I'm not centered enough to deal with it.
Now, how would this occur? I mean, would this creature come to you in your sleep, in your bed?
Well,
would this creature take you up somewhere?
This is what is very hard to explain because I think I mentioned on the show long ago that I'm a skilled astral projector. I've been doing it for 14 years. And I've been traveling out into those weird realms and had a lot of strange things happen. And I always knew that I was out of my body and that I could not be harmed physically. Now, this time, and I also am a lucid dreamer.
Okay.
But this time I woke up out of sleep, and my very first experience with the reptilian was that I was making love to a gorgeous blonde man. And in the middle of the sex act, it turned into a reptilian.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's what I said. And that's when
From blonde surfer to reptilian?
Yeah, it was, but the thing, what they shapeshift, and I don't know how many other species do as well. It's possible that the greys do as well. Maybe the greys are reptilians or can shapeshift
Oh
into.
my God, that it's possible. Then you have to imagine it's possible that women who are meeting men all over the planet actually are meeting shapeshifters.
You never know, Art. At least I think I know that the military has been cloning for a very, very long
I
time.
don't doubt that at all.
And I will tell you another incident which I wasn't going to share because it all sounds so outlandish that even I sit back and I go, how am I ever going to even tell my abduction support group about this? And I sing on the weekends. I'm a singer, and I had a gig in Pacific Palisades about 7 or 8 months ago. And it was an Asian wedding, and it was couples. Everyone was down in the yard. It was like a 3-tiered backyard, and the band was set up at the top and with the bar, and all the guests were downstairs having dinner. Dinner had started, right? 2 guys walk in, dressed in black, with sunglasses on. After the sun went down,
Men in black.
I couldn't believe my eyes. I said, this couldn't possibly be real. And luckily, I had just seen the film, Men in Black, so I had a bit of a sense of humor about it. And my staff man came over to me and he said, Diva, what I my nickname, he said, Diva, look at those 2 guys over there, because he had heard your show, and he knew what I was going through and knows me well. And he said, I swear to you, those are Men in Black. And I said, listen, JC, the minute I get off stage, I want you to come with me and we're going to confront them because they're either gay lovers at the wrong party or they're Men in Black. So as soon as I got off stage, they were gone. And I said, look, I know that they were here. I said, let's go look for them. They must be in the house because they're obviously not down eating. We would have seen them go by. We went out. I finally said, listen, let's ask the valet. We went to the valet, and the valet said, yeah, we saw these 2 weird guys. We thought maybe they were bodyguards, but there's no stars here. And I said, well, I think I know who they were. I said, what were they driving? And he said, a black Lexus.
Oh.
And I said, well, they're a Cadillac, but I mean, these are weird.
This is a horrid thing to contemplate, Pamela, but has it occurred to you that those men, obviously onto you, right?
Well, obviously.
Obviously onto you, that these men may have snooped, peeped, recorded your encounter with Mr. Reptile here.
I tell you, Art, the research that I've been doing has been pretty heavy since I first became aware of this. And I know that many people that have had military abductions right after going public, and I've had a couple of experiences that are actually almost too scary to talk about. And I know that it happens. I have a couple theories about it. I've been researching mind control and have found out some pretty startling things about, the disposal program for the mind control victims who are implanted with extraterrestrial abduction experiences to cover covert operations they might have been involved in. And so many records were destroyed once they're disposed of. I mean, it's very possible that on one hand, they're muddying the waters of research for abduction because they've already set the ridicule campaign for abduction in action. That was a planned scheme on their part to discredit all of us.
Well, I really can't accept a couple of things that happened to me that are too scary to talk about.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to try and pry that from you.
Well, I'll tell you off the air.
No, on the air. Tell me on the air. All right? Not now. we're going to go to break. Maybe.
Yeah, we'll bargain.
All right. Pamela and her former question mark lovers, the lizard guy, pictures on my website right now, www.artel.com. We'll be right back. Artel Summer in Time. Tonight, played on Coastal Stadium from February 5th, 1998. Summer in Time. Tonight, play on Coastal Stadium from February 5th, 1998. Well, I could have had Monica Lewinsky on this morning, but no. I'm suggesting to that. I've got Pamela. Pamela was on the show. I'm going to say it was a year ago. It had to be a year ago. Pamela was abducted at a very early age. Not a victim, mind you, but a cooperative, consenting adult in a relationship with a lizard. Maybe a lizard is unfair, but he looks like a lizard. Technically, he looks like a lizard, a big lizard with a t-shirt. We've got a picture of this creature that Pamela has at times cohabitated with. And it's on the website right now, as well as a photograph of Pamela herself. I mean, it's absolutely nothing short of remarkable. The whole story is remarkable. Here's somebody saying, all right, this is not your everyday woman. She seems to have a number of very special qualities. She definitely has special qualities. No question about that. And we'll get back to Pamela and her special qualities in a moment. All right. Originally, Pamela was, I think the word would be sexually molested by the Greys. The phrase would be accurate. And then she actually, I think it's fair to say, she had an affair. Is that a fair word, Pamela?
Well, I don't know. I can't call these things by human terms anymore.
No, let's do, all right, fine. Let's
walked into a new paradigm.
Let's define, okay. There would be sexual components to an affair.
We had an interaction.
There would be an emotional component to an affair.
I suppose so.
And so in most senses of the word.
I know, but affairs sound like something married men have, you know.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, that's true.
You know, let me just tell you one thing. I think this is really important. A lot of the experiencers that I've been in contact with, and I've been in contact with an awful lot of them, really go through the same thing. Finally, we get to the other side of these experiences, understand them, become aware and process them, and become functional again in our lives. And I'll tell you, at the end of all this, there's only one species that really, truly scares me, and that's the one that I belong to. I've rarely seen such an angry mob mentality as when a new concept, a new idea, and perhaps a perception that we really need to consider if we're going to face the new millennium is put in their faces. They simply cannot adjust. And we've crucified our messengers throughout our history and suppressed truths that we need to get on with our lives and evolve. And I would just really like to tell your listeners to keep an open mind, because the people that come forward with these experiences, it takes a lot of courage to do so.
Of course it does, but you've got to admit that most women would have to have an extremely open mind.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, the women that I've met are so incredibly evolved. Now, I find that the men have a much harder time integrating these experiences, and I think it's because they are, when they're out of control, it's so frightening to them that they just can't handle the experience. And again, you have to look at this. Most people can accept and believe that the gray abductions are going on. I mean, it's an accepted fact.
But as a
They're
man,
very well respected. But the point is, you introduce a new species,
that's right.
and once again, all the new prejudices are out rearing their ugly heads.
Pamela, Earth women are supposed to be for Earth men.
Well, you know,
That's where the problem is.
I don't think any of us are necessarily Earth beings. I think we are throughout eternity coming into new forms and new consciousnesses. And this is the expansion that I've become aware of, just in terms of being a paranormal explorer my whole life. And I think that's probably one of the reasons that I woke up to these experiences.
Right. In the middle of the first relationship you had with the lizard,
right,
he morphed himself.
Right.
At first he was a handsome human.
Right.
And then halfway through the act, he became what we see here, roughly. Now, why do you think that the lizard guy would think that you could handle that? Particularly at a sensitive moment like that.
The thing is, I had 2 other interactions with the reptilians after that. The first time was the only time that I was introduced to a human-like being before he shapeshifted. The other time he just showed up.
Yeah, but the question is why he revealed himself to you at that moment, why he thought you could mentally handle that.
I'm not sure. I really don't know for sure, except possibly, like I say, I go back to my regression, where I was to be reminded of my connection to that species, and the fact that I need that mental warriorship to do what I'm going to do the rest of my life. Because I've walked into a life that I'm now really compelled to share this information and get some answers for myself and everyone else.
As dominant.
Yeah, or aggressive, let's say.
Synonyms, I think, dominant, aggressive.
Okay, well, I'm pretty dominant and aggressive as well. In fact, I noticed that the minute I became a participant and I became aggressive myself, he disappeared.
What?
Yeah.
You mean you even scared him away?
I don't know that I necessarily scared him. I think that the job has been done, and that was to basically bring me through fear and an empowered position.
Oh, that's really weird. That's like staring down a bear in the forest.
Yeah, I've met many beasts face to face, and I think that I'm a more powerful person for it. And if the reason that we're here on this planet is to overcome fear, because it is such a synthetic thing. It's man-made. It's not our natural state to be in fear.
You've got to understand, though, Pamela, that it's doubly hard. And I really mean this. It's doubly hard for the average man to understand that any Earth woman would prefer or even allow a totally different creature.
Yeah, I know. It's pretty bizarre. And like I say, I think it's just a matter of getting over, once again, our prejudice.
Now, I remember the last program we did, a lot of women called. A lot of women called, and they were really okay with this.
Well,
the guys who called were not.
Well, I think women are basically more intuitive, and I don't think I can get an argument from anyone on that. And I think that they sense something about me that is real, maybe that empowers them, to give them just a little bit of an insight into something that is unknown, that they're afraid to venture into, and at least explore and talk about.
When Barbara regrets you, is that when she found out about the things that you said were just too scary to talk about?
No, those were experiences that I had after going going public.
All right, after going public, that means after my last program?
Yeah, at Strength Universal, the whole nine.
So in other words, anything that I would pry out of you now about these two things would be utterly new.
Oh, yeah. I've done a lot of new things, but like I say, I don't want to disclose everything because I'm also writing a book, and my co-author's in Hong Kong, and I didn't have a chance to call him and say, what can I talk about?
Believe me when I tell you that anything that you would say now.
Well, it'll be between you and I, right?
No. No, we're on the radio. I'm being with you. You know you are. Anything that you would say now would just promote the book. Because obviously in a book, you would get all of the complete lurid details.
Well, you know, there's a chapter devoted to you and all the people that wrote to me.
There's a chapter devoted to me?
Oh, yeah, it's called For Whom the Bell Tolls.
You're kidding.
Oh, well, you know, I really do have to thank you because one of the reasons that I've been offered to do a lot of other magazines and radio shows and TV shows, and you know what? I've learned my lesson. If I am edited in any way whatsoever, I'm not doing it.
I know. I don't blame you for a second. I am very sensitive about who I will do an interview with because, you know, they come after me, Pamela. You've got to understand.
I know.
You know, even with some of the absolute righteous work that I do, I have a lot of people that hate my guts because of the kind of material that I air.
Sure. Well, and the thing is, we've got to have an allowance policy here if we're going to get any new answers in life. And it's real sad.
Well, just give us a little tease about these items and the things that have occurred to you since last time we spoke.
All right, I'm going to share a couple of things. I've met a couple of women who went public years ago when it wasn't quite as safe to do so. I mean, you have to understand, I believe that the UFO cover-up is probably one of the most profound cover-ups that we will ever face. And I know why, because the ramifications of disclosure are so huge. We're talking religious, economic, political, you name it. Everything's going to crumble. So as far as our shadow government, because I don't even think our government is aware of what's really going on, but as far as they're concerned, they have to do anything in their power to keep this quiet. And there have been a couple of women that I know, one in particular, and I'm not going to use any names because I don't want to divulge who they are, because I know that one woman has been absolutely terrorized by the military. In fact, over a dozen of her neighbors have witnessed her being abducted by the military and interrogated. And I just want you to know that it's really going on.
Abducted by the military and interrogated about an experience she had?
That's right, because we're not supposed to be going public with this. You have no idea the harassment that abductees have.
Yes, I do. And the same kind of experience you had?
Well, mine was similar. I really don't want to talk about it. I woke up one morning and I was completely aware that I had been interrogated.
You too, by the military?
I only remembered my own memories of it. I was extremely drunk when I woke up. I had my face was swollen, my front tooth was chipped.
Oh my God, they beat you.
Huh?
They beat you.
I don't know. All I know is I felt like someone had beaten me up. I didn't think that I had even left my apartment. I have no idea. But,
so they probably got every detail. They probably got it all.
Well, I don't know. I imagine they must be curious to know either whether I'm a mind control victim, which I'm pretty sure I'm not. I mean, I didn't.
You gotta admit, you wouldn't know.
I think I would. The thing is, I believe that it's all of the above. I don't think we can, put all these things into a nice, neat little box.
Maybe not, but Pamela, it's impossible to believe for most people that you could have a physical relationship with this creature without being the victim of some kind of mind control.
I know. Well, that's what the mind control people say. But I can't believe that that is the case. I really believe it's all of the above.
As a matter of fact, a man out there, even me, might choose to believe that the reason you said you prefer the lizard guy to human guys is because of mind control.
Well, the thing is, extraterrestrials, I'm sure, have as much power as the government to mind control. I mean, let's get real here. The mind control program has been ongoing since World War II. Over 800 German scientists were brought here after the war and filtered into the mind control program. And our tax dollars are paying for this.
MK Ultra.
That's one of 147 parts that we don't know about.
147 programs?
Yeah, that's what we know about.
Good Lord.
I mean, my mind control research has really scared me. And of course, I talk about on the phone. I know my phone has.
Well, once you know it, who cares?
Yeah, well, the thing is, the things I talk about, and my co-author, we do interviews on the phone, and, I'm very verbal. I'm not holding anything back. And that's another reason why I would appeal to your audience to listen to these accounts that people are bringing forward, because we're sharing something with you that is really to our detriment to do so.
But that's right. But yours is the wildest of them all.
Well, you know what? But I'm not the only one. I'm just the only one that will talk about it. I got letters from the Bible Belt from women who said, I can't thank you enough for coming forward.
I know. The last quarter, we had women crying on the air.
They say they're down there in the Bible Belt, in a Christian community, and if they told their husbands about their experience, they would be afraid that they would be divorced and exiled from the community.
Of course.
And I happen to not answer to anybody. Thank you.
So you don't have a husband to worry about divorcing you and casting you off?
No.
So I can understand why then you would come forward, but even at that, it must have been
I'm dealing with, employment stuff and friends and the men that I've dated in the last couple of years.
Do you tell them about it?
Well, I feel like I have to. It's part of my life, and they have a very hard time, and they don't stick around very long.
And they just up and leave.
And that's okay.
Well, it's not really.
Well, but the point is, I need somebody as strong and truthful and centered and allowing as I am.
Do you watch their faces when you tell them?
Well, it's just, I realize, and I'm not having a hard time with it. I don't feel rejected. I understand how difficult this might be to walk into. I mean, I'm not a passive woman without a mind.
Most guys could accept a woman with a history. No problem. A human history. But
well, I'm going to need a pretty incredible man. That's okay.
Have you yet met an Earth man comfortable with this?
Well, oddly enough, I saw a video, because I scour for videos and whatever I can find on the topic, and I saw a guy who I believe is going to be in Linda Moulton Howe's book. His name is Jim Sparks, and I think he's from Florida. And on his tape, he said he had one interaction with the reptilian. Now, he's had a lot of great experience.
Yeah. You mean guys are having interactions with lizard ladies?
Art. Yeah, I can't tell you how many people have had this experience. Credible, empowered people.
You didn't tell us this the last time.
No, I didn't know that Jim Sparks was having, related interaction. But what he did was, he asked these beings, he had 12 beings around. He said, I want to know. He's very old. I can't wait to meet him. I hope to meet him one day. He said, I want to see what you really look like, who you really are. And all of a sudden, they all shape-shifted into reptilians. And he's going to be in Linda's book.
Is he?
Mm-hmm. And I thought he was very empowered. And
can you hold on?
I sure can.
For the one of the hour.
One more cup of coffee after the night.
That's it. And you're listening to Art Bell Somewhere in Time on Free Beer Radio Networks. Tonight, an encore presentation of Coast to Coast AM from February 5th, 1998. Radio Networks presents Art Bell Somewhere in Time. The next program is February 5th, 1998. And was it such an intense thing with him that it took your breath away?
What are you talking about? Which entity?
Oh, you know the one, the green one.
What do you mean? Was it what?
Did it take your breath away?
And then some.
And then some. All right, hold on, Evelyn. We'll be right back to you. All right, Pamela, here's a question by fax. First of all, I mean, a million people want to talk to you. I know it's great. Art, ask Pamela. Please inquire of her at any of the amorous encounters. Was there a presentation of alien flowers, alien chocolates, or most importantly, alien alcoholic beverages during the courtship?
Only absolutely fresh sex. That was such a funny ad that guy wrote. I really want to hear that again one day. You know, there's one thing I would like to talk about, and that is the wonderful people that contacted me afterwards, after your last show. In fact, I think I remember telling you that I was about to press a CD, and I asked for, donations of $1. Well, I only got $200, but I got hundreds of more letters, and I wasn't able to press a CD. But I took all my own money when I lost the last job, and it was about the time of the Roswell 50th anniversary.
Boy,
So I pressed, it was great because I got to go. I went. And I had pressed up a couple of cassette copies, and I sent one to the concert director at Roswell.
Should have sent one to me.
What?
Should have sent one to me.
You know what? I'm going to send one because I now have a sale out of my purse, you could say. And the people that sent me $1, I have kept the money and the letters. I've written to most people back, but I haven't been able to get to everyone. And I just want to thank everyone. And the people, I have an address now because I'm actually selling them on a couple other radio stations.
Whoa.
And for people to write to me as well, because I want to include some accounts in my book. Anyone who wants to share anything, even anonymously.
It sounds like all the details and the details are going to be in the book.
Oh, yeah. And that's
Figures.
yeah, well, hopefully I'll get it out without too many more military abduction.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing is, one of the reasons I'm even talking about this stuff is because if anything does happen, maybe a few people will ask questions, because I'm not going to off myself. I'm not going to have a heart attack. I do yoga and, bounce on my trampoline. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be an accident.
I understand. All right. Do you have an address you want to give us?
Yes, and
What is it?
M as in Mary, MSM,
MSM.
and it's 171 Pier, Pier Avenue, number 395, Santa Monica, 90405. And what I'll do for the people.
Wait a minute. 90405.
And what I'll do for the people that send me $1, if they send me their name and remind me that they sent me $1, I'll look it up and I'll send them a cassette. I've got 12 original songs, 2 of which are about my abduction experience.
That's very generous, especially for a buck.
Well, no, but the thing is, the people that send me $1, then they can have the cassette for $8. That includes shipping and handling. Anyone else that wants it can get it for $15, including shipping and handling. I paid for all the mastering myself. J cards are really high quality, and the songs are great. I've got a song called "The Heart of the Gray Matter" that it's so moving. One of the women in my support group came up and started crying. She said, "I can't believe it. It's so healing." And it talks about what it's like waiting for an experience to occur.
What did you write any songs about him?
It's got a line of, it says, I start to taste, splash my face and drop my shades. My eyes are getting heavy and I sense how quickly a warrior's courage fades. The line is, could be a dragon or a reptile or a man in black who moves in the shadow.
Do you know the creature on Star Trek that is reptilian-like?
Yes, I do.
What's his
Matter of
name?
fact, I told you I have a new job over it.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
no, don't give out. But listen, what is his name?
I saw the map today. I want to say Torque, but I don't think that's it.
It's for it's like gore for.
Oh God, I can't believe I don't know.
But actually on Star Trek, several times they have shown how he courts a female of his own species, and it's one really rough love affair.
Well, some people like it rough.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's funny, I have the makeup artist, the one who does the aliens, and I'll tell you, Gene Roddenberry was tuned in, as they say.
Had to be, because look how long ago that was.
Yeah, he was an incredible man. As a matter of fact, I sang for his last 5 birthday party.
You're kidding.
No, my band played, well, not my band, I was working with an agent at the time, but that man was so incredible. He introduced himself to every member of the band and sat there in front of us, applauded for the jazz solos. It was amazing.
All right, well, there's a lot of people want to talk to you, of course, so let's see what we've got on the lines. You just never know. You're first time calling line, you're on the air with Pamela. That's you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, this is Brian Seagull. Pamela, I've been listening to the show. I did not hear your original interview with Art Bell.
Yeah, we're on a whole lot more stations now, so a lot of people would not have heard that first interview.
Okay, well, I went GSFO, so I think it's been on for a while. But at any rate, I heard what you said about it being a tantric experience. And I have a question for you. Was there more than one experience with a reptilian lover in the tantric way? And did your energetic experience of him, since you don't have a name for him, did your energetic experience of him draw him towards you when you would think of him energetically? I have felt his presence many, many times. And as a matter of fact, it's interesting because Barbara Lamb shared with me, and this was afterwards, and I'm sure she won't mind me telling you.
Barbara's the one who regressed her.
Yeah, this woman is so incredible. She is a shining beacon in this field of research.
So what did she say?
She actually, in a conscious state, met a reptilian that came into her living room and shook her hand and disappeared. Now, this is a woman who's very well respected. She's credentialed.
This is the full extent of that relationship, though, is a handshake.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is, what she?
All right, you're not answering the caller's question, Pamela.
Pardon?
You're not answering the caller's
Oh, but
question.
the question was that I had two other experiences I think I mentioned with the reptilian, and it was extremely sensual, organic, but yes, it was aggressive. But that's the only thing I can describe it as.
Organic, sensual, and aggressive.
So I have a question beyond that. Then you mentioned earlier in your conversation with Ardell this evening that when you became aggressive, the entity disappeared.
Scared him away.
So did you need to remain in a yin receptive state, or he was dominant to you in order to experience the sensual gratification, the sensual experience that you had with him?
Yeah.
No, I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that it has nothing to do with the stating of sensuality. But I think what really is the key here, and what I found is a way to, in some way, control the interaction, and that is present yourself as an equal and in the interaction. That's totally contrary. Exactly. Well, and the thing is, I didn't even put it together as that. I realized that I've been able to control and stop my interaction by getting out of fear, presenting myself as an equal, not a victim, and really seeing that being through loving eyes, connecting with them. And
It's like, you're not going to rape me, we're going to rape each other.
No, it's not great connect because I recognize that divinity in you. Right.
Well, it wasn't rape. I guess it's not fair to call it rape, but it was.
Men have a different vocabulary.
Yeah.
Right. But I would like to interject here. So therefore, this was a spiritual as well as a sensual or sexual experience for you in terms of orgasmic sexual state. Absolutely. That was, I could not have participated in that way if it hadn't had that connection. Right. So cognition was about experiencing life. Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Right. And remember, it's not prejudice that has demonized the very presence of reptilians.
Interesting you should say demon on front of the board again. I've got to ask you, because they will. I guarantee someone on one of these lines is going to come at you like this. Do you realize
that I got the most friends from?
I'm sure. Do you realize that you had sex with a demon?
Well, that's what I got a lot. And again, I believe that it's a prejudice. Because I don't believe in the devil or in Satan. I think Satanists are just bad Catholics, And I believe in the good and the evil in men's heart.
Right, this is a J Cortex. Wildcard line, you're on the air with Pamela. Hello.
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 Oh, wow, this is me.
Only you know that for sure. You're a hairdresser.
This is unreal.
Where are you?
I'm in Tennessee. This is Jim. I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yes, Jim.
I'm also a first-time caller.
Yes, sir.
This is a very interesting
yes, it is.
Subject. I don't even know where to start asking questions.
I didn't either. It just sort of rolls on. I mean, you must have something.
Well, she says that she feels like it was a spiritual connection.
Yeah.
That she had this.
Yeah, but all women say that.
Yeah, that's true.
All women want that.
They all want that.
That's right.
And that's how he was able to connect with her mentally, because they do all want that.
Right.
And I feel like that's why she was able to be comfortable like she was with the situation.
You know what I wonder? I wonder if this spiritual connection was not like it is here on Earth many times one-sided. In other words, Monica Lewinsky may have thought she had some great spiritual connection with Bill.
But you know what? Really, does it matter? Does any perception matter but your own?
Well, that's right. That really is true. In other words, you perceived it as a wonderful emotional experience, whether or not the green guy.
Absolutely. Well, the thing is, we can never experience how much someone loves us. All we can experience is how much we really love ourselves. And that's all we can project is how much we love ourselves. We can only have our own experience of love. we can have have something reflected back to us, but it's like a big circle. It goes through them, but back to us, but it's still coming from us.
There you are, caller.
I'd like to know how long she thinks it'll be before books come out. I'd like to read her book, definitely.
I would.
I definitely believe that she has had an encounter with something.
Oh,
No doubt in my mind.
Well, thank you.
There's a lot of people having these same encounters, and I'm glad that she's come out of the closet with it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I just finished the proposal. I've got the first 3 chapters in the introduction in the hands of an agent in New York as we speak. And hopefully I'll be able to get in advance and finish it.
you mentioned, Pamela, I presume that you could then afford to put your job and pay full-time attention to your book.
Oh, yeah, that's what I really love to do.
All right, look, you said that when you look at his mouth, that you would compare it to like a crocodile mouth.
Well,
Right?
more crocodile than human, but still,
All right, what about the tongue?
I really am not aware of a tongue.
But lizards
Have,
tongues.
I guess so, but
I believe they fork them.
we did not kiss.
No kissing.
The only thing that the entity did was he did lean down by my neck, and that's the only.
Did he chew on your neck or
No,
give you a reptilian hickey?
no, it was simply that he was in that area.
All right. East of the Rockies, you're on the air with Pamela. Hello.
Yes.
It's you. Where are you?
Williamston, South Carolina.
All right.
Very small town. I have a question there. I just want to say that our small town, we had in our small local newspaper, a lady who said that she saw a reptilian creature enter her house, and he was more or less just observing.
In South Carolina?
Yes, sir. It wasn't. I never heard. I turned into the radio station. I heard this, and I hadn't heard anything about it. Since I hadn't heard anything about it anywhere else. I thought it was just,
Oh, no, look, we're used to this. We opened the lines. Last time we did it a year ago, we got the same kind of thing, Pamela. There's another reptilian sighting for you.
I know. Well, and that's why it's really important for someone to be talking about this, because I know the answers are out there. If we're all brave enough to come forward and talk about it
I
together.
think it's important to even ask Pamela, how many women are involved with reptilians, or for that matter, how many men involved with reptilian females?
Well, that's why I'm out here, because I got letters from both men and women.
Hundreds of letters?
I got hundreds of letters.
That's really frank.
Yeah.
I mean, that is.
Not to mention the emails I got. I mean, they are so stunning. I had to do a chapter. I could do a whole book on what happened after your show. I could probably do a sequel with what's going to happen after this show.
Probably. West of the Rockies, you're on the air with Pamela. Hello.
me?
You.
Oh, yes.